what goes on inside a school after everyone leaves? Silent hallways, empty classrooms, and strange shadows when all the lights go off. Well, I always did, but I found out what really happens the hard way when my friends and I decided to sneak into school at night. But what started as a fun adventure quickly turned into a night I'll never forget, and not for a good reason. So my friend's dad is a teacher at the school we went to, and one day he comes up to me at lunch with this evil look in his eyes, and he pulls something out of his pocket. With a smile on his face, I can see that he took his dad's classroom key. I asked him why he took that off his dad's keychain, and he told me he didn't. Instead, he got a copy of the key. Now, I couldn't really understand why he would feel the need to do this, so I asked him, and that's when he brought up the idea. Dude, we should sneak into the school at night. Nobody would know. When he said that, I just stared at him like he was crazy, because I was trying to go to a good college, and the last thing I needed was to get busted for trying to break into my own school. Like, how am I going to get into Hogwarts after doing something like that? But my friend wouldn't drop this idea. He just kept pushing it. Come on, we could literally do it next week, and no one would notice. Just think about it. I wish I had better judgment, but after a couple of days of him bringing it up, I decided that it did sound kind of cool. Like, we've all thought about what our school is like when no one's there, and there's something about being in a place that you're not supposed to be that just gets me super excited. So I was convinced. We made a plan to meet up at 10 p.m. that Friday. Once everyone goes home for the weekend, we were pretty confident that there would be no one left at school. We should have been smarter than to think that though, because on Friday night, when we got to our meeting spot behind the football field, I thought it was just going to be me and him. But he brought his cousin too. I didn't expect him to do that at all, because I had no idea who this man was. I didn't know if he was going to snitch or not. Whatever though, it's fine. When we finally got to the school doors, it looked super different at night. I never realized how much of an echo the school had when you would talk during the day, but now that we were here with no other noises, it was 10 times louder. We got to the front door of the school, and this is where things started to get nervy, because once my friend turned that lock to open up the door, it felt like there was no going back. And we weren't sure if that when we stepped inside, it would set off some sort of alarm or anything like that. So I was shaking when he put that key in, but it fit in perfectly, so he turned it, and there it was. That click sound. The door was officially unlocked. We all kind of looked at each other smiling for what we were about to do when we got inside. Once we actually stepped in, the hallways inside were super dark. We only used our phone flashlights because we were scared someone from the outside might see if we used a big one and they would call the police. But as we're walking through the hallways, our footsteps made these big echoes against the walls, and every little noise we heard made us freeze. We were trying to figure out where to go first, and we ultimately decided to go into a couple classrooms. You know, I had some beef with some certain teachers there, and I wanted to do something, to say the least. So I took a dump on Mrs. Schumer's desk. No, I'm just kidding. That was a lie. That was a lie, okay? Mrs. Schumer, if you're watching this, I did not take a dump on your desk, okay? That was not me. That was Gerald. But anyways, all the classrooms looked super creepy at night when it was completely dark. And every time we would go into one of the classes, it felt like someone was watching us. Whenever I got that little tingle thinking that someone was looking at me from behind, I'd turn around super quickly and look at them, thinking that I'd catch someone in the act, but there was never anything there. Sometimes I still do this when I think there's a ghost in my house. And one day, I'm gonna catch him. Okay, I thought I was gonna do it there, but I didn't get him. At first, it was really fun to be inside the school after we got over the fact that no one was in here with us. We ran around the halls, sat in the teachers' chairs pretending to be them, and my friend's cousin, well, he drew some inappropriate pictures on the teacher's whiteboard, to say the least. Now that I think about it, I don't know if he ever erased those. I wonder what the teacher thought when they showed up to school on Monday and saw those drawings. But we ended up wandering to the teacher's lounge, wanting to check out all the places that we weren't allowed normally as students. It low-key kind of looked like an insane asylum in there, with no light or anything. It was just kind of depressing. No colors on the wall. I don't know how teachers do this, but it was just cool to be in there in general. So we were laughing, enjoying this experience, until out of nowhere, my friend's face drops, and he looks at us with this confused expression on his face. Do you guys smell that? I hadn't noticed anything until he said that because my nose is clogged 25 hours a day. But then I took a deep sniff, and there was a strong smell in the air. What exactly it was, I couldn't pinpoint. So we all started sniffing like a dog, trying to figure out what that smell could have been. And suddenly, it got stronger and stronger. It wasn't the smell of food or cleaning stuff or anything I've ever smelled at school before, but we could kind of tell which direction the smell was coming from, so we figured it would be a good idea to go and try and find the source. We didn't realize just how bad of a decision this would be, because as we walked out of the teacher's lounge and into the hall, the smell got way more intense. The best way I could describe it is that it smelled like chemicals, but it also was burnt at the same time. Almost like when you leave something on the stove too long. But as we got closer and closer to where the smell was coming from, something that none of us had planned for happened. We realized exactly what the smell was. Smoke. It hit us right in the face. Once we thought we figured it out, we all kind of looked at each other with confused expressions on our face. None of us said anything at first, but the smell kept getting stronger as we were taking every step. It was almost as if it was spreading through the air vents, and it started to make my nose burn. Then, to confirm my suspicions, my friend says, Is that smoke? I wondered what goes on When he said this, I suddenly thought of what they always taught us to do in school when there's a fire. Line up in alphabetical order in a single file line, and then once everyone is there, we can walk out as a class. As someone with the last name Vitelli, I always knew I would have been cooked if there was a fire in school. I hated doing stuff in alphabetical order when I was younger. It's pretty much like being the first guy chosen in the 100 men versus 1 gorilla fight. Like, you know you're cooked. But this was when real panic started to set in. Was the school actually on fire? If it was, there were 2 reasons this would be terrifying. 1, because fire is obviously dangerous and we don't want to get hurt. But 2, if the school actually was on fire and we were the last ones seen at it before it happened, who are they going to think did it? Did he? Okay, no, I don't, brain rot, bro. I don't know why I'm saying this. But obviously, if we're the last ones seen at the school, they're going to think we did it. Sorry, not again. My friend's cousin suggested that we leave right away because he already has a criminal record. Glad we decided to bring this guy to break in. But I was thinking about how guilty we would have looked if we left. So I knew if there was actually a fire, we needed to try our best to stop it. Otherwise, I would have been going to college at McDonald's University. That actually don't sound too bad now that I'm thinking about it. Damn, I'm hungry. So we stood there trying to decide what to do. My brain was jumping from one idea to the other. If we left and the school burned down, would they actually be able to figure out that we were the last ones here? Are there any security cameras at this school we don't know about? But if we stayed and tried to fight the fire, we might get trapped. Or worse. So we decided to go towards the smell just to see how big of a problem we were actually dealing with. We started walking towards where the smell seemed the strongest, which was down the hallways in one of the classrooms. With each step, the smell got worse. It was definitely some sort of chemical burning, which was making my eyes water and my throat scratchy. I kept thinking about how much trouble we were going to be in. Breaking into school was bad enough. Just that alone could get us suspended. But what if there was actually a fire and we didn't report it? What if the whole school burned down because of us? You know what that means? No school on Monday! No, but for real, that would have been bad, so we didn't want that to happen. Because my mom would have done way worse to me than the police ever could. So we were arguing about the next best step. We should call someone. Maybe the fire department. No way, are you crazy? Then we'd have to explain why we were here in the first place. What about your dad? He's a teacher. He might know what to do. My friend looked unsure, but he knew it was the right thing to do. So he pulled out his phone and dialed his dad's number. Ring, 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 ring. Straight to voicemail. So he tried again. Ring, 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 ring. Nothing. You can never rely on a teacher to pick up their phone past 10 p.m. on a Friday night. We both knew exactly what that man was doing right in that moment. So that was it. We were on our own with the problem getting worse and worse by minute. The smell was so strong now that I had to pull my shirt over my nose just to breathe. We followed the smell down the hallway, past the math classrooms, and around the corner. When we turned that corner, the smell suddenly got way worse than it had been before. And we also saw something to confirm our suspicions for the first time. Smoke coming from underneath the door. So we approached that classroom door carefully, as if it was about to explode any moment. And we tried to open the door handle, but it was locked. We tried peeking through the small window in the door, but it was so dark it was hard to see. The one thing we knew for sure, the smell was absolutely coming from inside that room. While pressing his face against the glass and cupping his eyes to block out the flashlight from our phones, my friend looked through the tiny window to see if he could see anything inside there. Maybe some smoke or just some sign that would help us out. But the darkness made it impossible. Although we knew we were onto something because of the smoke coming from underneath the door. Once again, we were back to deciding what to do. We needed to get inside that classroom. And then it hit me. The window, huh? This classroom has that window on the other side that faces towards the parking lot. They would always keep it cracked during the school days because it got so hot inside there. Shout out to our school for not having air conditioning, by the way. Maybe it's open right now. We knew that was our best and probably only chance to get inside that class. The 3 of us sprinted through the dark hallways with our phone lights bouncing all crazy off the walls, knowing how quick we needed to be if there was really a fire. Because we're from California. If there's one thing we know out here, it's fire. And these things can spread fast. So we burst through the exit doors trying to get to the parking lot. We slowed down when we got closer, trying to remember which classroom we were just by. They all looked the same from outside. Dark squares against the brick wall. And then my friend's cousin pointed to the one where the blinds weren't completely closed. That's gotta be it. The window was way higher up than I remembered. It was at least 8 feet off the ground. And I'm 6'8", so if I can't see into it, no one can. Yes, I am 6'8", guys. And I respect women, okay? Who want me? Seriously. I told the guys I was gonna need a boost to get inside, and they immediately crouched down and cupped their hands together to help me out. I stepped into their hands and they lifted me up. Once I could reach the window ledge, I was able to pull myself up enough to see inside. But what I saw made absolutely no sense. The room looked completely normal and empty. No fire, no smoke, Nothing spilled over inside, just dark lab tables and stools tucked underneath. Worse here than it was inside the hallways. It was leaking through the tiny crack I was peeking through, and it was making my eyes water. I tried pushing the window open wider so I could get a better look, but it was stuck. Probably because I haven't seen it move from that position since the whole time I was at that school. So I pushed harder using everything I had, and suddenly, it broke away. The window slid up about halfway, and now, the smell was so bad that I felt like throwing up. Literally the first thing I did when that window opened more was gag. Oh my gosh, the smell is definitely coming from inside here. That's what I thought in the moment, not knowing the full truth about the situation. What is it? Can you see anything burning? No, that's the weird thing. It looked totally normal, except for the fact that the room was covered in some sort of haze, as if there was smoke in it recently. I pulled myself up higher, trying to get a better angle of the whole classroom, and I managed to squeeze myself halfway through the window, hanging in there like an idiot with my legs dangling outside of the building and my torso inside. I recalled to all the Final Destination movies I watched, where someone passed away in a ridiculous cartoon way, just thinking I was next up. But I turned on my phone flashlight and panned it around, desperate to find something that would explain the smell and the smoke. The tables were all clean, the cabinets were all closed, nothing was knocked over or spilled. Guys, I don't understand, but the smell is definitely coming from inside here. Maybe it's like invisible gas or something. Which is what they said as they were still trying to hold my big back up. But the thought of invisible gas freaked me out. What if it actually was some dangerous gas that could poison us from breathing it in? Or what if it could explode? I've seen stories of people just passing away one night in their sleep because of the gases, and they had no idea that it was coming. So what if we were breathing in toxic chemicals right now? So I scrambled to get back out of that window, and as soon as my feet hit the ground, I backed away from the building, taking deep breaths of the clean night air. We need to get out of here. I don't know what's going on, but we need to leave. The possibility of those dangerous invisible gases really freaked me out. The guys didn't even try arguing. The freaked out look on my face must have been enough to convince him to leave. But we needed to figure out if we were just going to leave without saying anything or actually try and solve this. We need to call 911. There might be a gas leak or something that could explode in there. Are you insane? If we call 911, they'll want to know who we are and why we were at school at midnight. If we do that, we're getting arrested. But what if the whole school burns down because we didn't tell anyone? We'd be responsible. As Dumb and Dumber were arguing, it felt like we were stuck in between two horrible choices. Either risk getting in serious trouble or risk being responsible for something horrible happening to the school. We decided we couldn't just leave if the school was in danger. Although we were terrified of getting caught, actually being the reason that something bad happened sounded even worse. But we knew calling 911 directly would mean us getting in trouble because of the questions they would have asked us. They ultimately would have found out that we were breaking into school, and that's how we found this smell. So we stood there trying to figure out what to do, when finally, I had an idea. What about calling the school's emergency number? You know, like the one they give the parents? We could call from a block number once we're far away, just say that we were driving by and smelt something weird, and that's it. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was something. Because our school had this number that you could call if you had any questions or concerns, and it worked 24 hours a day because it wasn't affiliated with the actual school. It was a separate company. So we decided to get out of the parking lot first, then make the call once we knew we were a safe distance away. The plan was to leave everything exactly like we found it, so no one would know we were there, unless the camera saw us. Sorry. So we went back to my friend's dad's classroom first to make sure we didn't leave anything behind, and the smell wasn't as bad over there, so we figured that we would be okay. We checked the room quickly, making sure that nothing changed, and then we bounced. We ran for blocks without stopping, not saying a single word to each other, just trying to put as much distance between us and the school as possible. We finally stopped when we reached the park about half a mile away. All three of us stopped and laid on the grass, panting and coughing. Our lungs hurt from running so hard and from whatever that smell was that we were inhaling the whole time. So then my friend's cousin pulled out his phone and called the emergency number. We figured it would be safest for him to do it since he didn't actually go there. When the automated system picked up, he left a message about a chemical smell coming from the building. We sat in silence for a few minutes after that, all thinking the same thing. Were we going to get caught? Were there security cameras we didn't know about? Was the school itself going to be okay? We had to decide on a game plan to make sure that if anyone asked any questions, we all had the same answers. We agreed that we wouldn't talk about this to anyone, and if someone were to ask us a question about the situation, we would just deny. So that weekend was super nerve-wracking, not knowing what would happen next. But then, Monday came around. Now we had to go back to school. And I barely slept at all that weekend. The first thing I did when I got to school that morning was check out the classroom to see if anything happened to it. But when I walked by, it looked different. There was yellow caution tape across the door. And not like just a little strip. No, the whole doorway was crossed off with this bright yellow tape that said, Do not enter. A bunch of students were crowding around the hallways trying to figure out what exactly it was. I tried to act normal as I walked past, just keeping my head down and looking through the weather in Cupertino, but a couple minutes before classes started, the principal's voice suddenly came over the intercom and said, "Attention students and staff. Because of an incident, classes in room 118 will be moved to the library until further notice." Which class was room 118? Yeah, you guessed it. The room with the caution tape over it. So what incident was the principal referring to? Is an incident what you call when 3 students break in and almost die from chemical fumes? Did they know we were there? Were they just waiting to pull us out of class and arrest us in front of everyone? Yo, low-key, that would be kind of hard though. Like imagine your crush watching you get arrested. That'd be kind of sick. Once lunch came, I was walking towards the cafeteria when I noticed 2 teachers talking outside of that room again. They kept pointing towards the room as if they were talking about it, so I slowed down to try and hear what they were saying. Peterson's always super careful with this stuff. Yeah, but you know how things like this can happen when students are messing around. I kept walking before they noticed me eavesdropping, but my mind was racing. When they mentioned students messing around, I definitely thought I was getting busted. And then, in the middle of history class, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I sneakily checked it under my desk, and it was my friend sending a text that said, "Did you hear? They're saying something about an experiment that went wrong in that classroom." So I finally worked up the courage to ask my biology teacher for answers, not wanting to do it before because I didn't want to look guilty. She wasn't as strict as some of the other teachers, so I felt more comfortable asking her. "Mrs. Ramirez, I was just curious about the caution tape on room 118. Do you know what's going on in there?" "Oh, nothing too serious. Just some chemical reaction because of some liquids that were left in beakers inside that class. Apparently the students didn't clean up after doing their science experiment." My heart started hammering in my chest. "Oh, that's good. Well, were the chemicals that were released dangerous or anything?" And that's when she told me there was a chemical reaction creating a compound called ammonium chloride. So I asked her about that chemical, and she told me that those fumes can cause respiratory problems if anyone's exposed to them. Well, that's great. So if I grow a 3rd arm or something when I'm older, you guys know why. But after asking her some more questions, apparently this compound can create smoke and a really strong smell, which explained everything that we were experiencing that night. As far as I know, no one else ever found out that we were at school when this was happening, which would be great if it weren't for the fact that I am now telling thousands of people about it on the internet.